On episode 162 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet with Matthew Sweigart and discuss his book, The Pathways of Qi. You can find the show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/162. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. I hope you're enjoying Gratitude Month with us at 40 Plus Fitness Podcast through the group. If you haven't joined us, you can by going to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/group. We'd love to have you there. Today we're going to meet with Matthew Sweigart. He is the Director of Education for the American Organization of Bodywork Therapies of Asia. And after reading his book and talking to him, I can tell you this guy really knows his stuff about a lot of these Eastern culture things. And as you know, occasionally we do jump into some of these concepts such as Qi and life force and whatnot. And I can tell you that his approach to this is very good, very in-depth, and I really enjoyed his book. I hope you'll enjoy the conversation we'll have with him. And with no further ado, here's Matthew Sweigart. So Matthew, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you, Alan. It's great to be here.
I was kind of interested in having you on the show because when we first got introduced to your book that's coming out actually tomorrow, it'll go live on Amazon. They can pre-order it today, but your Pathways of Qi. And I have to admit that I am really a newbie to this. I'm very, very Western, never had or never was exposed to this kind of Western culture. Even though I've traveled, the funny thing is I've traveled throughout Asia, but it's just not a conversation point that someone kind of brings up while you're sitting there in Asia talking to them about, their ways and their culture. So like I said, I was first introduced to the concept of Qi. I mean, I've known the term Qi for a long time, but really understanding it as a science, more of a science than just a feeling, and that was this year. And so when I saw your book and opportunity to have a conversation with you, I'm like, okay, it's time for me to dive into this, because I think one of the core things that I'm really learning as science kind of advances in the West is that it correlates with a lot of the things that we're learning from the East, or we should have learned from the East many, even thousands of years ago.
Yeah, they were the original physicists.
So, in going through the book, it was, you caught me, and I'm also going to admit that you caught me, because towards the end of the book, you said something, this is not about counting and numbers and all this stuff. It's really kind of about understanding how these all interact in a network. And I'll have to admit, the 12-8, 12-8, I was, that's where my Western mind went. And I was like, damn, he called me on it. But,
Well, it's quite a sophisticated system. And I was thinking of that old quote that says the whole is greater than the sum of the parts it's made of.
And it's true. I mean, I think we've been conditioned to want simple rules in our life. Like, oh, you can count calories to lose weight, or walk 10,000 steps a day and therefore this, or eat an apple a day, it keeps the doctor away. We like those simple, straightforward rules, but we function in very, very complex systems. Even our systems around us are very, very complex.
So true.
And so as we kind of get into this, I guess the first question I really had is let's take a step back and what is Qi, and then how are the meridians? What are the types of meridians that you are identifying here or have been identified, and how does that all kind of just generally work together?
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Well, so Qi is a concept. It's a term that comes to us from China. In Japan, the translation is the word Qi. Chinese is Qi. And in India, they will perhaps agree that we'd call this prana. So if you've ever studied yoga or gone into a yoga studio and they teach you pranayama, which is the restraint of the breath, it's the movement of life energy and how that life energy moves through vast systems all the way down into, the human system that we live in on a daily basis and breathe and live and move in. So Qi is a really vast concept, but it also is very particular and very, very upfront, very personal. I'm reminded of a great quote about, I think it was Joe Montana, the football quarterback. And he was quoted as saying, "I don't play football. Football plays itself through me." Have you ever had that kind of experience, Alan, where It's kind of like you're not even doing it, but it's being done through you.
Yeah, it's a concept that I think Westerners have dubbed flow, basically.
Perfect. And chi would be actually in alignment with this idea of flow. We might even look at the idea of the experience of pain in the body, whereas Western medicine will say the reign of pain is mostly in the brain, and they'll be looking at the nervous system and the nervous responses and all the receptors. Whereas in the Chinese point of view, we say pain is no flow, and flow is no pain.
Okay. Now, you had told a story in the book where I guess you had injured your ankle, and that was a pretty interesting exposure. Can you take just a second? We're going to take a little detour here because I think it was a really interesting story that kind of correlates with what you're saying here.
Yeah, the ankle injury. I've had an ankle injury since I was actually born. I was a footling. I was born left foot first, and so the doctor kind of grabbed that ankle on my first episode in life. I came out from my mother's womb with the first grasp of my left ankle. And over the course of my life, I've also injured my ankle several times. A soccer injury in grade school, paper route when I was a boy, going over a fence and landing on my ankle funny, et cetera, et cetera. Several little sports injuries throughout life. And ultimately, this got to a point in my midlife, say in my early 30s, I want to say, so a little earlier than midlife, but where some of the pain I would experience in my ankle was just quite excruciating, would be debilitating, couldn't even walk on it. And I started to explore a technology that's actually somewhat of a spiritual technology and doesn't necessarily come from my Chinese medical training, but the question is, rather than asking what is wrong in the body, the question is, who is that? And I found that walking with my ankle pain, I would reflect upon my relationship to that first entry into life. And I happen to remember the name of the doctor who was the attending physician at my birth, Dr. Kosader. And I remember saying out his name. I say, "Hello, Dr. Kosader," as if I was greeting him in the way that he may have greeted my left ankle. And fascinatingly enough, just from that greeting, the pain in the ankle almost immediately dissipated and went away. So that this experience of pain, which we might call no flow, as soon as it was addressed and greeted in a kind and open way, it shifted and the flow was restored. So injury has a kind of a history in the body inside of us. Now, if I add in some Chinese medical understanding here, there's a particular energy line that flows through the ankle called the gallbladder channel, and it has to do with our decision making and our responsibility and staying on task and getting jobs done and being evaluated for the quality of the job that you've done. And I'm a busy professional with a full practice, as well as a family, raising children, bills to pay, phones to answer, clients to serve. And so there's no end to decision-making processes in my life. And I have a feeling that this particular channel of energy that relates to decision-making and choices was pretty strongly active when I was feeling that pain in my foot, in my ankle. And so by clearing those, it's an intricate process. It's hard to say what comes first, but by bringing it into awareness, to say, wow, if I could just take a deep breath, slow down, and let the answers reveal themselves instead of always pushing myself to get another answer, then that's going to help restore the function in that joint. And indeed, it did. I have full function to this day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now, when you talked about the gallbladder line, that is a part of the meridians, right?
Yes, exactly.
So can you kind of go into a general understanding of how the meridians effectively work? We can't go through the whole thing because there's quite a bit, but I just want to get kind of a general overview of how these all interact.
Yeah, and so that brings us back to chi, because chi is this life force energy, right? And it flows through the body, and it flows through the body through various pathways. And a real nice analogy to the Western understanding of anatomy and physiology would be the circulatory system, or even the nervous system, right? That there's these literally blood flows through the arteries and veins of the body, and it flows up and down the body, servicing various parts of the body and stretching out into the vascular system, right into the capillary beds of every part of the body is serviced by the circulatory system. Similarly, the qi flows through the body along circulatory routes as well. And so different aspects of your body which serve different functions for your life are served by the flow of energy.
Okay. Now, I know there are, you focus your book on the regular meridians, and there's 12 of them. Do you mind just briefly kind of going through those 12?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. The regular channels, roughly speaking, these 12 channels really correlate to the 11 or 12 physiological systems that we recognize in Western medicine. You've got your digestive system, your circulatory system, your respiratory system, your eliminatory system, right? The integumentary system, the nervous system, the immune system. All those functioning systems of the body each have what we call a meridian pathway that serves that function. Make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And so then these regular meridians, as they were identified, I guess you said 10 of them kind of correlate with an organ system, and then there's 2 that don't. And so kind of going through those 12, you take some time to really drill down into how we can manage those. What I really found particularly interesting is when you got to the 3 layers of health, because that's kind of when it all, I guess if I'm going to say it, it kind of coalesced in my mind to actually have meaning. That's the kind of the point in the book where I really felt like I got it. At least, I mean, I didn't get it, but as much as I was going to get it, that was where it kind of all came together. Can you talk about the 3 layers of health?
Well, let me lead there by using one of the meridian channels. So there's a particular channel known as the stomach meridian in a Western translation. And this stomach meridian, just by extension, the stomach is our appetite, right? The function of appetite. And it runs down the front of the body. It starts at the eyes. We see food. It goes past the nose. We smell food. It goes around the mouth. We taste our food. We chew our food. It goes up to the temples because we think about our food, right? And then it goes down the throat. We swallow our food. It comes down through the breast, down through the belly, and all the digestion that takes place, right? It goes down the legs because we use our strong muscles in our legs to go and get the food that's going to nourish us. Now, that's the stomach channel, and its flow down the front of the body. And the energy we need to fulfill our appetite, it could be seen to express itself on the front of the body. Now, when we look at that from the 3 layers of health perspective, I think of the first layer of health we call a reflexive layer of health. And a reflexive layer of health relates to just that, your reflexes. If something's hot, you pull away. A loud noise, you jump. If you're a trained athlete, you train your reflexes, and you condition them to work really quickly and fast for you. And just watch the hockey, Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, my God, what an incredible set of reflexes the trained athlete has to respond to the speed of the puck or the ball that's the game, right? Right? So you've got this reflexive layer of health. And if your reflexive layer of health is off, and if you're a hockey player, you're going to catch that puck in the teeth, or, you're going to trip over your skates. You won't have very good performance. So the reflexive layer of health is really important. And we say that resides in a layer of physical aspect of the body that's in the muscles and the tendons. And we call that the tendinomuscle layer of health. Because with good, healthy tendons and muscles, you can respond reflexively in the moment to whatever stimuli is present and be effective in your world. And if your reflexes are off, you're going to be accident prone. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to not know where your edges are or what your capacities and limits are. So that's a really important layer of health, that reflexive layer. Now, when we go a little deeper into layers of health, we look at what we call the conditioned layer of health. And the conditioned layer of health relates to what I like to call your beliefs, your values, your attitudes, your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings. And these are all the ways in which you've been trained to look at the world from the environment you were raised in. what kind of person you should be, how you should behave when you're in the marketplace compared to how you should behave when you're on the job, how you should behave when you're in church, how you behave when you're intimate at home with your family and your loved ones. And those ways of behaving are in this layer called the conditioned layer. And that's a really complex and sophisticated system. And it's very human. It's very natural, right? And so with these conditioned layer responses, we look at these regular meridian channels as conditioned layer energetics. So even say, coming back to our example of the stomach meridian channel, I'm trained to eat certain foods in order to have certain responses, right? Certain benefits. I know that if I go out and drink a 6-pack of beer, I'm probably going to sleep hard and have a hard time getting up the next morning. But if I eat well, eat a balanced diet, go to bed at an early hour, I'm going to wake up refreshed. I'm going to feel good. And so this is all conditioned layer of health that's related to how we manage our appetite. Now there's 12 different channels, 12 different systems. So you got your stomach, you got your spleen, pancreas, which is the partner of stomach that helps to digest what you've eaten. You've got your lung and your large intestine, which relate to your just ability to breathe the air and to eliminate what you no longer need. You've got systems like your gallbladder and your liver that have that heavy job of detoxification and managing the blood sugars that rise in and dispersing those blood sugars when you need them in activity. All these various systems of the body, and so many of them are really deeply conditioned and reflective of our responses to the environment that we were trained in as children and as members of our culture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the third layer, which is even deeper.
Yeah. And that third layer we call the constitutional layer. And this constitutional layer correlates to really questions of fate and destiny. Are you here on the planet living your mission? Are you really in touch with why you're here and what you're alive for? And that's a big call, right? It often takes people decades to really refine and define and get really deeply connected with what they're on the planet for. What's your purpose here and whom are you meant to serve? So this destiny layer or constitutional layer of health is kind of that. It's almost like it's kind of what you're born with, but you might think of it as the lessons you get to learn in this life. And over the course of time, you're going to have a series of experiences that enlighten you and a series of mistakes. You go, oh, I made that mistake again. And, I like to say, I'll repeat my mistakes until I get good at them. Or that great Tom Hanks movie, Groundhog Day. If we could just wake up every day and try again, try, finally get it right. That's kind of this constitutional layer of health. And like from a Chinese medicine perspective, there's a particular set of channels that move an energy in the body known as source qi. And source qi flows through this set of channels that are called the extraordinary vessels. And the extraordinary vessel system is really beyond the scope of my book, Pathways of Qi, but it's implicit in my practice of the medicine. And so what's a good example of there's one of the extraordinary vessels that is in a circle around your waistline. And it's known by my teachers, they taught it to me as the vessel of latency. And it is the vessel of energy in your body that contains all of your what ifs and if onlys. And we've all got them. What if I had said this? If only I had done that. What if I had chosen this career instead of that career? What if I had said this, right? And so these are kind of destiny level questions.
Okay. Now, if someone, because I know, there's the practice of Qigong, and you have a very good kind of walkthrough in the book of kind of how you go through the practice. And there's also Tai Chi, which is kind of a subset of that. If someone wanted to go through and find a good practitioner, what are some things that they should look for? I know this wasn't really covered so much in the book, but it's just if someone wanted to get a good practitioner to work with, what are some qualifications, some things that they would look at?
Well, the practice of Qigong is, it's kind of like, the word Qigong is kind of like the word automobile. right? And you go down to the car dealership and you ask for a car, they say, well, we've got a Subaru, or we've got a Volvo, or we've got a Ford, or we've got a Mercury. And then you've got all the different styles within it, right? So the word Qigong is kind of like the word automobile. And so when you go shopping, you want to kind of get down to make and model. And the make and model that you're looking for will be, in many ways, quite personal to you. And you want to look for a certain level of resume that the teacher or the instructor or the author might have. So, for instance, reading a book like mine, I reference about 6 different authors in my book, maybe 9, very influential teachers in my life. And a couple of them are in the Qigong field. I know that I really honor and respect a teacher named Roger Yonka. He's out of Santa Barbara. He has a program called Feel the Qi and Tai Chi Easy, one of the best teachers of Tai Chi in the West, in my opinion. Another great teacher, Li Junfang, created a system that he calls Shang Zhen. And Shang Zhen is a kind of Qigong that has to do with cultivating unconditional love and the practice of feeling that experience of unconditional love and acceptance as the kind of baseline for health and happiness. And so finding a good practitioner is a bit of an art. You can, to a certain extent, search your local contacts, and almost every YMCA these days has a Tai Chi class. And Tai Chi, you'll understand now, Tai Chi comes down through the martial arts traditions in many respects. And so Tai Chi will often be linked to places like karate studios or kung fu studios. And very often you can find somebody who's really well trained in kung fu or jiu-jitsu or kung fu sansu, any of these strong martial arts styles that have a disciplined training. And they will also have some sort of offering that brings you qualified training in Tai Chi.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And so, again, I really appreciate the opportunity to read your book, Pathways of Qi. If someone wanted to get in touch with you and get the book, where would you like for me to send them?
Well, and that's by extension of my last comment. I offer a Qigong training myself in Meridian Gesture Qigong. And I have a website, MatthewSweigart.com, which is my personal website where I go through listing the places where I'm teaching and what I'm up to. And I also have various products there, DVDs and MP4 trainings that you can take so you can learn this in your own home, as well as invitations to my live events. And I also have a program in Shiatsu training, which is the hands-on touch therapy application of Qi that I practice. And I have a website, heartmindbodywork.com. And that's all spelled out as one word, heartmindbodywork.com. Heart being H-E-A-R-T, like the heart in your body. And heartmindbodywork.com has my ongoing schedule for the Heart Mind Shiatsu training. And of course, my publisher, Llewellyn Publishing out of Minnesota, who's picked up and is publishing the Pathways of Qi, they'll have my contact information right there in the book.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to have links in the show notes for this. This is going to be episode 162. So you can go to older.fitness/162 to get those links and to get a link to the Amazon to purchase the book, Pathways of Qi. Matthew, I really appreciate having you on today.
It's awesome. I appreciate it. Any time for a last comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have to say one of my favorite classes is I teach senior citizens out here in California at a homeowners association called Eschaton Village. And it's just such a joy to work with elders and seniors with this work. And when I heard you say fitness over 40, older fitness, Qigong is the kind of exercise you can practice into your 90s safely and effectively. And it's just such a wonderful practice.
Yeah, I know having gone by some parks in some larger cities, you see groups out, at least doing the Tai Chi. And yeah, it is obviously a protocol that you can do at any age. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, Alan.
I really do hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, would you please go to iTunes, Google Play, or your listener of choice and leave a review for the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we talk to Pete McGill and discuss his book, The Born Again Runner, a guide to overcoming excuses, injuries, and other obstacles for new and returning runners. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.